When I say the word intimacy, what do you think of? Now hold that thought right there. Joining us is someone who has made it her intention to break down those taboos in the context of intimacy. Tracey Ziman Jacobs is a qualified social worker and intimacy and relationship coach with over a decade's worth of experience helping people and individuals, as well as couples, reconnect, rediscover themselves, and rebuild meaningful relationships. Her work focuses on sex positivity, sexual human rights, and creating safe spaces for honest conversations about relationships and desire. Now, beyond her private practice, she's also the host of Totally Not Taboo podcast, which we will explore in just a short bit. For now, let's welcome Tracey onto the platform. Tracey, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Tracey, I'm going to ask you this very question. You've dealt with a wide variety of people. When they hear the word intimacy, what are some of the descriptors that they give you?
Well, they search for me. Well, their search on Google is wanting more sex. So they look for sex coaching, sex therapists. Generally, their Google search would be wanting more sexual intimacy or intimacy in their relationships. And what they're really essentially looking for is help with their sex lives.
Sure.
But when they realize that actually what they're needing is intimacy, is connection. That's what they're really looking for, because intimacy is really about connection. And there are so many ways in which we can connect intimately in a relationship that doesn't only rely on sex.
Tracey, perhaps let's give definition to intimacy. And I'm saying this for the individual who goes, but listen, if our bodies are connecting, surely that's intimacy. You know, if I talk to you in the morning and, I give you a kiss on the forehead in the evening, surely I'm doing what I need to do to be intimate with you in all forms. But I do think that there's more that's required, no?
Absolutely. Firstly, there's sexual intimacy, which couples experience at the very beginning of their relationships. So a couple meets, they lock eyes at a bar or a club or wherever it is, and there's this chemistry, there's this erotic energy between them, and they hook up straight away, and they go to somebody's house or apartment or whatever it is, and they engage in an incredibly intimate sexual act. And I often explain it, it's like something that would make porn stars blush, right? It's very, very intimate in terms of what their vulnerability and in terms of the nature of that intimate act. Intimacy on that level is erotic and it's passionate, and the couple get caught up in this eros of no holds barred and just allowing their bodies to go to that place of being orgasmic. And that is very intimate. But in terms of a deep, vulnerable, intimate connection, there is none of that, because they don't know each other. So yes, we can be intimately connected on a sexual level, but when it comes to an intimate relationship that will lead to bonding in the future and actually just setting a foundation for a lasting future and a strong relationship, which is built on trust and honesty and safety and curiosity and empathy and respect. All these kinds of things are not there in that one night stand.
Absolutely. The voice there of qualified social worker, intimacy and relationship coach and podcaster. That is Tracey Ziman Jacobs joining us this evening. We're looking at the context of intimacy and really just trying to understand it better when we're looking at ourselves and our partners. If you have questions, do find us on WhatsApp +278 288 6684. For now, a quick breather. 19 minutes before 11 p.m. Central Africa time. We are still in conversation with Tracey Ziman Jacobs, who's a qualified social worker, an intimacy and relationship coach, as well as a podcaster, joining us this evening, helping us bring definition and even more deeper understanding of intimacy and its various contexts. We are going to be talking about the podcast Totally Not Taboo, because I think there are a few things that are addressed there that I want us to air out this evening. Tracey, let's get into that very last point that you made, that we can have some kind of erotic intimacy, but not have that deeper connection with a person. How do we fuse the two? Because I've always found that we tend to lean on one more than the other.
So I just want to just zone in on 5 different types of intimacy in a relationship, and then we'll touch on that again. So couples come to me saying they want more intimacy in their relationships, and what they're really meaning is they want sexual intimacy. So there are 5 different ways in which we connect intimately in a relationship, and the first one is sexual intimacy. And sexual intimacy in itself has so many different, it's a smorgasbord of activities that make up sexual intimacy. It's orgasmic. It is also just going back to basics, like just making out on the couch, just foreplay, just cuddling, massage, touching, kissing, and we've very much focused these days on the pleasure of foreplay and bringing in the 5 senses and the pleasure aspects of touch, the importance of touch. And we're trying to take sex off the table sometimes in relationships when there's too much pressure on performance and achieving that orgasm. Also, the space has to be safe for sexual intimacy to feel connection, to feel connected. Then we look at emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is the way we share deeply with one another about our deep and darkest feelings, our pain, our trauma, and we hope that our partner can hold that space for us during times of vulnerability. And very often the space is not safe for our partner, or for us to share with our partners about these deep emotional events or what's coming up present in the relationship. And our partners tend to either want to try and fix us, they want to offer solutions, or they simply don't know how to handle these overwhelming emotions, so they may leave the room or just bung up and become tongue-tied. So the person who's sharing with all vulnerability tends to say, okay, well, that was not what I intended, and that hurt, and I'll never do that again. So emotional intimacy is not a safe space anymore. Then we look at intellectual intimacy, and this is about planning for the future. It's about setting goals together. It's about talking about finances. It's about being able to just pick up a book and just be able to open it in any page and discuss something, listening to a podcast. Now, if my opinions are nonsense and I don't know what I'm talking about, then we never really resolve conflict. We can never really respect each other's points of view, and so there's a breakdown in the intellectual intimacy. So that space again becomes an unsafe space to charter. And then we look at physical intimacy, and this is not sexual intimacy. This is about quality time. So in what space can we be alone together without watching Netflix, without being on our phones together in the same space? Where can we be connecting and having fun and being more adventurous, doing hobbies that we both enjoy? For example, it might be getting together at a restaurant where there's a quiz night, and now we have to battle these things out together, or doing something creative like a paint night, and we're having a paint night on the 19th of March at the Wild Side, where couples just come to just, you don't have to be a Picasso, you just express yourself and feel like children again. We have had dance nights, salsa dancing, where couples really just come and have fun with their two left feet, but still there's a connection, there's a sense of you're my person. And if the space isn't safe again, we avoid being together. We avoid every opportunity for date night, and we keep putting it off. And then the last type of intimacy is spiritual intimacy. And spiritual intimacy for me is about awareness. It's about consciousness. It's about the space between us. It's about reading my partner when they come home from work. It's about not not believing that the whole world revolves around me. So if my partner comes home and they're a bit moody, I don't take things so personally. Spiritual intimacy is also about respect. It's about empathy. It's about compassion. So we really look at those types. And again, a safe space needs to exist where we can just sit in silence together and not have to be in our heads so much. I hope I'm not speaking a little bit fast, but I know that we do have a bit of time restrictions.
Yeah.
But
No,
coming back, sorry,
yeah.
yes.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Coming back to your question about intimacy and the sexual intimacy and how do we balance that eroticism and the passion. So life is hectic, life is stressful. We don't always feel like being sexually intimate with our partners. We have so many stresses on us. What we need to start doing is getting out of our heads and into our bodies. It's a hard task, but in order to experience that real passion and that real erotic energy, it requires that we stay focused on pleasure in our bodies, pleasure in our environments. What around us is actually giving us pleasure. And we look at the five senses, focusing more during foreplay on what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch, and what we hear. So we set up the environment that we are tantalizing these five senses and including them in our pleasurable play together, emphasizing getting out of the head and more into the body.
The voice there of Tracey Ziman Jacobs joining us this evening, intimacy and relationship coach as well as podcaster. 49 minutes after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. While you digest that, the five forms of intimacy, as well as just a response to the realities of interconnecting the two kinds of intimacies that we spoke to. Let's take a quick breather. When we get back, we continue this conversation. 9 minutes before 11 p.m. Central Africa time, we are still in conversation with Tracey Ziman Jacobs, looking at the realities of intimacy. We explored the five types of intimacy that I just learned about: sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy, physical intimacy, and of course, spiritual intimacy. Tracey, you kept on emphasizing one point. It is important for you to feel safe. The safety that we're looking for, is this established in each domain? Is it a safety that lies outside the frame of intimacy? What does safety look like?
Well, in terms of safety that lies outside the domain of intimacy, if you take emotional intimacy, for example, that kind of lies on the outside of on the peripheral, should I say, on the periphery, because if there is some kind of emotional abuse, and my partner's always putting me down and telling me that I'm useless, or is not listening to my needs, and I'm not feeling seen, and so on and so forth, then I don't feel safe in the relationship to actually share my needs, my opinions. I can't contribute to conversations, intellectual conversations. I can't be present. I'm never feeling good enough. Okay, maybe that's my stuff and not their stuff, but it doesn't allow for the space to open up for communication, for honest communication, where I can express myself freely without being, constantly told that I don't know what I'm talking about. That's just an example that I see quite often. Sometimes it's a physical safety, sometimes there's physical abuse. So if I am being physically abused by my partner, there's no ways I'm going to feel safe sexually. There's no ways I'm going to feel that I can trust my partner to take care of me sexually. I won't be subject to some kind of physical or sexual abuse.
Mm.
So there has to be this sense of safety, and we don't realize that emotional abuse is it's big, and it happens in subtle ways. I don't know if that answers your question.
It absolutely does, Tracy. It does. I think it's all interconnected, and the reality is that you feel safe knowing that this person has your best interest at heart. And it's through their actions that you learn this. Tracy, I
Yeah.
want to talk about making relationships playful. Okay.
Yes.
I feel like we strain ourselves and we try and put our best foot forward. And sometimes that best foot is not the one. So you move the other one and you are strained and work is happening and your friends are not agreeing with you. And life can get challenging. And I feel like that also takes its toll on the relationship. And so every kind of intimacy, from the sexual to the physical to the intellectual, all of these are troubled because you're trying so hard to perform that you're not just existing. You're not just being. So how do we make relationships playful? Yes, in the growth. Yes, in the developing ourselves and getting better and becoming more intimate, but also still remaining playful. How do we get that done?
Yeah, it reminds me. So you have when couples first meet, they're in that romantic phase of the relationship where they are playful. They make out and they giggle and they laugh and they're silly and they have adventures, they go places and they explore things and they feel free, they feel like children. And that's why the romantic phase of the relationship is so exciting, that couples who sit on my sofa years down the line and say, I want to feel that excitement again. I want to be able to do the things that we used to do. And unfortunately, the romantic phase in a relationship is just a phase. And then we move on to the power struggle phase in the relationship. But let's not focus on that phase for now. The question is, how do we get back to that romantic phase so we'll never get there again? That was a time and place in our lives, but we can recreate it. We can we can tap into that inner child by dipping our toes in the water again. And it really is about the five senses. It's about activating those five senses. It's about going out there and being curious about the world. When we're children, we are curious about the world. We go, we touch, we smell, we put things in our mouths, we listen to things that make a noise, we touch things. And this is what being sensual in the world is. It's about igniting the senses. So it's about my partner and I going out, let's say, to a nature reserve and touching the leaves and the trees and listening to crumpling of dead leaves and maybe smelling the soil, picking up the rocks and touching and feeling, and having a cool drink and feeling the taste of this cool fizzy drink on the tongue, and feeling the ice going down, maybe putting the ice on the body. And if that's, maybe it's a warm night, it's a night by the fire, and it's the smell of the fire and the logs and the taste of delicious hot chocolate and the low lighting, and it's some subtle music, sensual music in the background, and then we're giving each other a sensual massage, or we've got some delicious massage oil that we're running over each other's bodies, and we've taken sex off the table, but we're just having fun. Or we are working out a puzzle and remaining curious about each other. What do you think about this? How does this make you feel? Um, we're engaging in things that where we are remaining curious about ourselves and about each other. And that's what play is. It's about going back to that child, exploring our environment and being excited about our environments.
Absolutely. Tracey, we are time pressed, but I'm going to ask you this question. I suppose this just maybe even alluding to a part two of this chat, right? You have a podcast, Not So Taboo, I believe, or Totally Not Taboo podcast. What is the one thing that you have addressed that is highly taboo in society, but you're realizing that there's an opening for people to now receive whatever this thing is? What's that one thing that you've addressed on the podcast that has shocked very many?
Wow. I wish I could actually have one that has got people going, wow.
Yeah.
But really, Totally Not Taboo is about looking at everything that is sex and sexuality that is taboo. I must say that we live in a very conservative, dominated Christian or religious, not necessarily Christian, but a religiously institutionalized community, society where sex is just taboo. It's something we just don't talk about.
Yeah.
So I think if that's been the most popular discussion is about how do we take sex and put it on the table? How do we encourage the conversations about sex and the pleasures of sex, taking away all the fear around sex and making it something that we can now just put on the table and talk about without shame, without guilt, without having to feel our own, taking away our own stuff, our own taboo, our family, cultural, religious taboos. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm really exploring that.
The voice there of Tracey Ziman Jacobs, who is an intimacy and relationship coach and podcaster, joining us this evening. Tracey, this has been an absolute pleasure, very informative. I am looking forward to a part two.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It is top of the new hour. If you've just joined us, thank you so much for choosing us over the rest. Welcome to African Diaries.